All right, you lucky boys and girls. Today you get to pull out your notepads, take a seat in your desks, and listen to a fantastic teacher by the name of Stephanie Younger, because today she's going to teach us how you can absolutely dominate your market and get all kinds of fantastic business through event marketing. Primarily, they do a lot of different things, but one thing that they do really, really, really well on Stephanie's team is event marketing and also just their team culture. I was introduced to her by one of our all-time Get Listing Summit favorites, Sharon Srivatsa. And he introduced me, when he introduced me to Stephanie, he said, this lady is on fire. They have 25% market share in their core market in Westchester, and then they serve a lot of the surrounding areas as well, to the tune of, hold on to your britches, to the tune of 165 deals last year for $190 million in volume. They're already on track to hit 240 deals this year and cross the $300 million production line for this year. So what Stephanie has to share, you should probably pay attention to and go implement. Stephanie, welcome to the Get Listening Summit. So excited to have you here with us today.
Thanks so much for having me, Andre. I'm so happy to be here.
I really hope I did that introduction right.
It was fantastic. You were 100% accurate.
If I didn't, I'm gonna never hear the end of this from your assistant. So I really hope I did this right. I love how your team wants to take care of you, and they take care of you so well. So that's really cool that you guys have that culture. We might get to that today.
They did. I'm happy. I'd love to talk about that too.
Event marketing. I know you guys do so much that you guys are good at in your business, right? In terms of serving your community, being active in the community. But, and I've heard from a few different speakers this year, to be honest. I've heard from a few different speakers about, event marketing is important. And I know that, open houses, for example, are a form of event marketing. But like when you and I talked on the phone, there's open houses where you kind of do the minimum amount to make an open house happen. And there's open houses, right? Done right. Before we dive into some of the maybe tactics of different kinds of events and event marketing, my question for you is, when you say event marketing, what do you mean by that in your mind as effective? What qualifies as effective event marketing for a real estate business?
Well, I should maybe preface by saying that I cheat a tiny bit, because my background actually before I was in real estate is as a special event planner.
Okay.
So before I was in real estate, now this is going back a long time now, but I did events at a luxury hotel, and then I worked in the pharmaceutical industry doing product launches and events for advisory boards of physicians in very high-end locations. So, that's kind of my bent anyway. So my whole sort of real estate career has been focused on trying to sell real estate in a way that's much more akin to a hospitality experience that, really focuses on service and having a great experience as opposed to just selling a house or buying a house. So we really wanted to feel like an experience. So for me, an effective marketing event is one where the experience is really rich and complete from end to end, where people have a sense of your brand from start to finish. And for us, it's sort of two main types of events. There's the events that fall in the open house category, and then there's the community type events that we are really using to further the top of mind awareness and the brand awareness in general. Okay.
Well, if your background was doing events, then all the more reason for us to ask you about events. So this is exactly what I was hoping for today. Let's go ahead and start with, I really love what you said, by the way. An effective event is where the experience is very rich. I wrote that down. That's a really good way to think about that, because it probably helps to get you out of the mindset of being transactional or salesy, and it's more about just putting on a fun thing for the people who might show up.
Well, so for me, even at like your basic open house, for me, I'm thinking about the experience as the guest or the client or the prospect or the neighbor is walking up to the house. So, I like to see all the flags in a certain kind of a row, in a certain kind of an arrangement at every open house, because to me, even that detail of how are your flags arranged is a hallmark of the experience that people are going to have when they come to one of our open houses. You know, to make
Gotcha.
sure that the sign is properly installed, that it's straight, that it's facing the right way, that it has the proper sign writers on it. And then as they approach the front door, that, you know, we have our branded mat that goes in front of the door with our logo on it, so that the very first thing they see is, you know, is our logo welcoming them into the house. So that's the granularity with which we're approaching even like your most basic open house on a Sunday where there, you know, isn't a big event per se.
Sure. Gotcha. And then I know you also have like a much bigger version of an open house that's almost like a pseudo community event as well, right? Kind of like a
Yes.
mini neighborhood event. Okay, perfect. If you're open to it, and I know you just did a little bit of it, would you be open to kind of describing for us the list of kind of the basics of just even like a basic open house? What would
Absolutely.
be required if somebody was on your team and doing an open house? And then we'll get into the bigger version of an open house that's almost like a more of a community event.
Absolutely. So our most basic open house, you know, the goal for me of every open house is to find a way to increase the attendance at the open house, and then also extend the life of the attendee. So we want lots of people there, and we want them to stay as long as possible, because the longer they stay, the more opportunity we have to interact with them. And the more we can interact with them, the more likely they are to learn something about the house that they didn't know, B, purchase the house, and if that house isn't for them, then perhaps decide that they want to take the next step and work with us in an exclusive way to buy something else.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, the goal is really to create an experience at every open house. So even our most basic open houses, we're thinking about all of those things. So, you know, each of our open houses, whether you are in a condo or a $1 million house or a $3 million house, all of the things that go into setting up for an open house are going to be exactly the same. So everybody uses the same pen.
Okay.
Everybody uses the same sign-in sheet. Everybody has the same handouts. You know, the map of the neighborhood, the list of the schools, the list of the other homes that are open in the neighborhood, the same quality flyer on the same quality paper, the same quality brochure. So all of those things are going to be identical no matter which house or which price point you're at. Every one of our open houses would have our branded bottled water.
Okay.
Every one of our open houses would feature some kind of a food item. Typically for like a basic open house, we're talking about a plate of artfully arranged just cookies, like something safe, something delicious, something good quality, but something that gives a reason for someone to stop and go, oh, wait a second, I'm a little hungry. I can have a snack. I can stay for a minute longer. We have a branded cocktail napkin, because if you're going to have food, you've got to have a napkin. And so all of those little touches throughout, you know, in our open houses, all the lights are always on. There's always music. We have a Spotify playlist that all of our agents subscribe to. So the music experience is the same in every open house. You know, no commercials allowed, right?
Right. Premium Spotify, please.
That's right. That's right. You know, all of our agents are very professionally dressed. They're trained extremely well. They're never sitting down. They're never having their own Starbucks cup hanging around. They're never doing work on a computer or having their phone out while they're at open house. They're really there prepared to welcome a guest and be a host in our seller's home.
Because you have so much depth and experience in throwing events and hosting, I'm really curious to ask you this question. Can you describe for me the difference between a host and somebody who's hovering and almost like, you know what I mean? Just crowding somebody's space, and it'll do the exact opposite of, you know, extending the time that somebody's going to be an attendee. Can you give us some, can you tell us what are some common mistakes that you see agents make where they go from being a great host to hovering?
Absolutely. Well, a great host, I think, is someone who's standing in a visual range of the front door. So as somebody's walking in, the host is walking toward them to welcome them to the house, right? They're not standing on the door on the porch waiting to pull you into the house. They're in the home as though it's their own. And as they see you walk in, they walk towards you, hand extended, ready to welcome you, shake your hand, and welcome you to the house.
Gotcha.
So for me, that's part of the difference. And then a host is somebody who greets you warmly. And, you know, it's, hi, Audrey, I'm Stephanie Younger. It's so nice to meet you. Thank you so much for coming. Come on in, please join me. How did you feel about our open house today?
Okay.
So just in the way we're going to greet our clients and our guests. And then it's somebody who walks them in and shows them, asks them to sign in because they're strangers in a home. So we do want to make sure that they're participating in the open house and they're giving us the information that we need to feel good about letting them come in the home. Okay. And then I think a host says, let me give you a little bit of information, and a host would give a short summary of the house and then invite the guest to take note of a few special items and then let them wander on their own and then ask them to come back and talk to me when they're done so we can circle back on their thoughts. So we're not necessarily walking every guest through the house.
Got it.
Like a bodyguard.
Right.
We're inviting them to experience the home in the way a guest would.
Gotcha. Okay. So something like, it's really nice to meet you, Stephanie. So over in this direction, you're going to find some of the recreational stuff. There's a gym over there, a built-in home gym. Make sure you catch the fire pit out in the backyard with the lounge area, and then upstairs, et cetera, et cetera. A little romantic balcony in the master bedroom. Once you're done checking it all out, come on back and I'll be here in the kitchen hanging out. And we can have a quick conversation then or something like that.
Precisely. And they're probably on the way out. You know, I might, if I can, guide them to go through. So the kitchen area might even be the last thing that they get to. Then, of course, they're hooked into the cookies while they're there. So it gives us an opportunity to bond for a minute over something beside the house. They're a little bit of more of a captive audience in that respect. And then while they're having their cookie or they're feeding a cookie to their child, we can actually talk a little bit more about what they think of the house, what their needs are in general, what brought them in today, and what they're looking for.
Man, the power of cookies and muffins cannot be overstated.
No, not muffins, too crummy.
Not muffins? Are we anti-muffin? No. Too messy? Little kids eating muffins too messy? Right. All right, so those are the kind of the basics of an open house. Absolutely love how you broke that down. One of the things that I'm hearing is that you have very much a standard that you adhere to, regardless of the price point of the listing, where it's located, whether it's a condo or a home. There's a standard of excellence you guys always adhere to. Well,
and in fact, we have, I think it's now up to 3 pages, but we have a 3-page document that all of our agents receive and outlines all of the minimum expectations that we are looking for in terms of the things that they need to do and to ensure at an open house. And it's everything from, what time you're there and what time you're setting up the flags to, making sure that the trash cans are not visible and that the toilet seats are down. So they have this 3-page checklist on everything that they need to bring with them. And then in addition to that, we give each of our agents an open house kit. So they all have a box of all the sort of emergency and extraneous items that one might need to be able to properly host an open house and to be ready for any emergency or anything that might come up. You never know, you're going to need Sharpie and a tape and, Windex. So we want to have that kit that allows them to be prepared for anything.
Gotcha. Okay. So you're really showing up to the open house with the mindset that if there's anything that you can make a little bit better quickly, you're going to do that because you really want to take ownership of presenting the best version of the home possible.
Exactly.
Awesome. All right. What is the mega version of the open house? All that plus?
Right. So, I don't really call it a mega open house. I would call them more like an open house event or an open house extravaganza, something that's a little bit more robust than that. And we're going to always host an event at an open house that's in line with the spirit of the home. So we're not just taking a party and sticking it on somebody's house. we're only doing special events like this where we really feel like we can further the theme of the home or further the spirit of the home or communicate an attribute of the home that wouldn't be noticed otherwise.
Okay.
So for example, we have a beautiful new listing that's on a very big lot that has a pool and has what they call a California room, which is sort of an outdoor heated living area. And we really felt like this is the quintessential California house. So we had an event there that we themed the California Dreaming event. And the house was just so perfect for let's say, a young professional person in the tech industry. So we felt like it needed to have Instagram-worthy photo ops throughout. So we created a vibe for the event, and we created moments throughout the house that we thought someone might want to stop and actually take a picture of and then post that to Instagram. We advised people to tag us in those posts, and then we supplemented that with, specialty food and drink that really enhanced the event. So that's the kind of thing we're doing, whereas we're not just sticking a party at a house just for the heck of it. We had a developer's brand new house that came out right after the beginning of the year. And so for that one, we did a theme of new year, new home, new you. And there we had an oxygen bar, which is really cool. I don't know if you've ever done that, but have you ever been to one of those?
I haven't, no.
So we hired a vendor to come and set up an oxygen bar, and it was 6 or 7 different flavors of oxygen, and you would hook up and sit there for 5 or 10 minutes and just basically enjoy the sort of rejuvenation that comes along with having an extra dose of flavored oxygen. And people absolutely loved it. And the best benefit of that was they stayed in the house for at least 10 minutes. And then we also had champagne, and we had pressed juice, and lots of sort of thematic food items that once they got their oxygen fix, and they would come and want to have something refreshing to eat or drink. So it was a great event. People really loved it because they were actually staying in the house, and they'd do their oxygen, they'd walk around, they'd come back and try a different flavor. So it was a really, really, but that's the kind of thing we're doing, is what can we do to complement the concept, the idea of the time of year or the home itself.
Got it. Absolutely love that. So you're being selective with that. You want to make sure that if you're going to do something like that, there really actually is an extension of the spirit of the home or a feature of the home or something about the home that makes sense for that.
That's exactly right. And I think this concept of the mega open house event is great. We're not trying to have every single person in the world at our property. What we're trying to have is people who are really going to be interested, who are going to engage. Our events focus on getting people into the house and keeping people in the house for as long as we can in a positive, constructive way. Like hosting a party, you don't want people to just run in and run out. You want them to want to stay and engage. And there are a lot of benefits besides just getting people to stay in the house longer.
So speaking of getting people to the house, right, and getting the right people to the house, let's talk a little bit about what your guys' marketing or promotion or invitation plan is, right? How do you guys what's your kind of step-by-step plan for getting people to the open house?
Well, I think that I always say to our clients that our marketing approach is a shotgun approach with a sniper focus. Because in order to be successful, you really do need to be prepared to hit lots of different channels, but make sure that you're being very focused in the way that you approach those channels. So in order to really effectively bring an audience into an open house, we'll do everything from targeted postcard mailers that are advertising the event and the property. So not just the property, but the actual event. We do tons of social leading up to the event, both on Facebook and Instagram. And those are general social ads, and also then ads that we're, sending paid advertising, demographically focused, so that we're identifying maybe who's the kind of buyer we think is going to buy this house, and then trying to pitch ads to them on Facebook and Instagram that we pay for, obviously, that are designed to reach a certain audience of people. And then we have a very, very robust email following. So our email database is about 8,000 people strong, and we regularly have about 27% readership on our email, which is really, really good for that type of marketing, because we're connected to those people. They're not just blank people that they're not people we purchase. It's a list that we've collated over many, many years. And they really do believe that we have interesting events and great properties. So they actually do read our emails. So we send email invitations. If it's a very, very high-end event, we might send actual hand-addressed invitations to people in an envelope, which has a different kind of outcome.
Okay.
And then probably most effectively before the event, in order to increase our neighbor quotient, our team of agents will always go door to door with a flyer, handing out invitations and actually inviting people in person to come to the event.
Got it. I like that. Door to door.
Listen, good old fashioned belly to belly, door knocking, it works.
Fantastic. All right.
And then of course we do signs, we have signs in the neighborhood. So all those things over the course of a week or 10 days leading up to the event, is really going to help ensure, because you can't guarantee how many people are going to come, but really helps to ensure that you're going to have a large turnout. Okay.
One final little question I want to cover about open houses, and then I'd like to move on. Discussing the idea of, host versus hovering, welcoming them, making them feel welcome, increasing their time in the home, but making a rich experience. How do you guys try to transition somebody from being just an interested party walking through the home to perhaps activating them as a buyer or as a potential seller in the neighborhood to be able to get a listing opportunity? Well, what do you find is the best practices around having that conversation in the home without being pushy or salesy, but also, accomplishing the goal, one of the goals that you're there for?
Right. I think that a hallmark of the way we do business is that we're trying to attract people to us rather than push ourselves onto them.
Okay.
So I think that the number one most effective thing that we do is that we ask people lots of questions, and we're very interested in who they are, what they need, and what their motivation is. Okay. And if you come to any of our open houses, I think you'd find that our agents are asking many more questions than they are speaking. They're really trying to get to the heart of who this particular person is and what brought them to our open house. Even someone who's just a neighbor who's coming to participate in the party, at some point they're either going to be a buyer or seller themselves, or they're going to know somebody who is. So
right.
Every single person that comes in is worthy of us asking them questions about who they are, why they're here, what they think of the open house, what their comments are about the house in general. And we find that when you come from an authentic, curious place, we find that people just want to give us information. So it's no trick. There's no smoke and mirror. But for me, it's about being authentic and curious and warm and attractive rather than pushing, right?
Got it. That makes perfect sense. All right. When you look at the grand scheme of event marketing, the big picture of just event marketing, whether it's basic open houses, an extravaganza, a community event, what kind of events would you say are a must in your marketing calendar, and how many of them do you want to do every year? Do you kind of have some sort of metrics that you want to hit, or is it just kind of a figure it out as you go type of thing?
Obviously, our open house events, we're hosting open house every single weekend. Typically,
are you?
Yes. So typically we'll have a regular open house, somewhere between 8 and 12 open houses every single weekend.
Okay.
And sometimes, 3 to 4 on Saturdays as well. So we really believe in open house as a way to expose the listing, as a way to sell the home, as a way to create synergy in terms of showings. So we're going to hold the open house open as much as we think we need to, and as much as the seller is okay with us doing until we get that home sold.
Gotcha.
This is a pretty robust open house community here. I know not every community is like that. However, I will tell you that I talk about open house a lot within our company, and I was giving a talk that was live streamed onto our company workplace on our Facebook workplace.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody in Chicago watched my presentation and then basically did all the things I told them to do in the presentation and hosted an open house in the dead of winter. And she said, typically we don't do any open house in winter, but I did it anyway. And she had 3 people come in, and one was a very good buyer lead for like a $2 million house. And she sold them a house like 3 weeks later. I'd say
Fantastic.
I'd say that paid off.
Yeah, it did. What was her theme? Igloos?
You know,
For her extravaganza? Parkas and
I mean,
igloos?
that was even just basic open house, right?
Right,
I
right.
mean, look, there's also an element to these extravaganzas. Like, I just find it to be fun, and I love what I do. But if we didn't have some way to engage in our community with our community in a different way, I how many open houses can you have in a lifetime, right? You want to do things that sort of move the needle and make them better and better all the time. So every time we do a big open house event, it informs the way we do our regular open houses,
Mm-hmm.
and helps to improve those in a way. So one time we were having a huge open house event, and it was pouring rain. And so I realized we had to have like a plan to deal with all the rain.
Mm-hmm.
That's when we developed the mat. So we ordered those big mats, that are the water hog kind. We had them branded. We had umbrellas. Every open house had extra towels to help dry people off. So we had basically a rain plan for open house, and now everybody has a rain kit.
Gotcha.
Each of our agents has their own rain kit so that they can walk people around the property in the rain. So, but in terms of how many, so we're holding regular open houses every single weekend.
Okay.
And then I would say that we like to look to do some kind of a specialty open house, 1 to 2 times a month.
Okay.
And, of course, that's going to be house specific, because not
Sure.
every house is going to warrant that. But I'd say it works out that at least once a month we're having some kind of like a more robust or bigger or extravaganza type event at open house.
Got it. Can you give me a little bit of idea of what a budget is for a basic open house and what a budget might be for an extravaganza?
Well, for the basic open house, I would say your budget ends up being pretty nominal. It's because we've got all of our supplies already in place.
Right, you're just reusing them.
Yeah, once you get that going. So it tends to be the cost of your flyers and your brochures and your water bottles and your cookies. So not very much.
Couple $100 maybe.
Maximum.
Maybe.
Right? I mean, maybe like less than that.
Yeah.
So, you're probably usually I like them to get around 3 dozen cookies. And on Mondays, there's a lot of cookies in our office because we don't eat them all every weekend. But I'm not saying no to that. An open house extravaganza could be anything from, $1,500 to, I don't know, I think, we had one really, really big event, but it was on a multi-million-dollar listing where we spent about $7,500. So it can be a big amount.
Gotcha. Okay. But it makes sense, right? Because of the home that you're selling. So it makes perfect sense.
I wouldn't be doing that every weekend though.
Right. No, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. When you and I got a chance to connect for our very first phone call and we were talking about your business, you also mentioned that you think it's very, very important to be active in the community, right? As a real estate agent. And I think the way you described it is that we as real estate agents have the opportunity to be active in our community and make an impact. Mm-hmm. And one, I just really like the language around that because I'm a believer that the language you use to describe something will impact how you approach it, how you treat it, your attitude about it. What I like to ask you is, what are those opportunities for being active in a community that allow you to contribute, make a positive impact, stay top of mind, and be able to attract business instead of push yourself onto people the way you kind of made that distinction a little bit earlier? How do you go about being active in a community?
Well, my business is very much a geographic farm.
Is it?
So yes. So I do find that if you're going to be a geographic farmer, that it's almost expected of you, and if you're not doing it already, then you should be, to be involved at some of those the community events that are the kinds of things that make people want to move to those neighborhoods, right?
Okay.
So the things that make communities feel like communities, if you will. So So for me, it's a combination of making sure that we are top of mind in our neighborhood all the time, and giving back in a way to recognize the fact that, I earn my living in this community. Therefore, I think it's expected of me to give back to the community, right?
Got it. Mm-hmm.
So for us, it actually started with the 4th of July parade. So our neighborhood has a 4th of July parade that is like 2.5 blocks long, not very long. But, like 5,000 people come out to this parade. And it's about now there's so many floats that the parade's getting to be about 90 minutes or so. And about 15 years ago, my husband said, I was just new in the business, and he said, you should pass out ice cold water with your photo on it and your branding. And so we went to the store and we bought those little bottles, and we ripped those labels off. We put our own labels on that we printed, and I think we did about 250 bottles, put them in a little red wagon with some ice, and like literally walked up about 10 steps onto the parade route, and it was all gone.
Gotcha.
So fast forward now, 15 years later, last year we passed out 5,000 bottles of water. We had an army of 30 volunteers, all in, T-shirts and hats,
Mm-hmm.
Hundreds of pounds of ice. And we passed out thousands of bottles of ice cold water and a couple thousand pairs of sunglasses and like 1,500 pom-poms. And basically just blanketed the parade route with our branding. And, the water and the sunglasses, people are so grateful for them because they realize that they go out to this parade, they're sitting in the sun, they get there an hour early, it's hot, and their kids, might have a hat on, but their kids are like squinting in the sun, and they realize they forget their sunglasses. And so people absolutely love them. They wear our sunglasses all over the neighborhood. And this has become one of our most important events in terms of brand recognition. Gotcha.
I love how you just started off with an idea, ripped off some old labels, put some new ones on there, and just grew from there.
Yeah.
I know it might be hard, or maybe it's not. Maybe that's just a preconceived notion of mine. But what's the this is the brass tacks question. What's the ROI on doing event marketing or being active in your community properly? Do you have any quantification around that about what kind of results you're generating for the business because of your involvement in the community and being part of these events and I love how you described it, be involved with events that make people want to move to that community. That makes such perfect sense.
Right.
Well, what's kind of a return that you think you can quantify around that?
I mean, of course, my answer has to be it's priceless.
Right. But for everything else.
Because it is. One time I was actually out like on open house and somebody had taken the bottles that they got at 4th of July parade and filled them with shampoo and conditioner and put them in the shower. And
oh, really?
Like, well, that's what I'm going to call brand awareness, right? So.
Oh my God.
But literally just this year, I listed a house, and this woman, her father passed away, and she said that the minute he passed away, she had people, as you can imagine, agents who monitor that kind of business, calling her relentlessly, and she told every single one of them that she was not going to hire anybody that was calling her the minute her father died. She was going to hire the lady who passed the water out at the parade. And that was how she connected with me, that when I need a real estate agent, this is the one I'm going to call. And people really do feel like, and it's true, we're putting our money where our mouth is. We earn a living here, but we're trying to do everything we can to give back at every turn.
I really love that. I really, really love that. I like that. For an agent who's listening to you right now, listening to this conversation right now between us, and is thinking, this, light bulb's coming on, or they're thinking, this is the right way to do it. I really want to do what Stephanie is doing. Are there any other ways that you can give advice for getting started to getting involved in the community? in
Absolutely.
addition to the idea of the water bottles, right? Because I mean, where you're at now, 15 years later, I'm imagining that your budget is much bigger than where it was 15 years ago, right?
Right.
So can you maybe give a list of a few ideas of how somebody just like you could 15 years ago can go get involved?
Right. Well, we all start somewhere. So, one of the first things I did when I realized that people actually cared that it was like a two-way benefit. I think people do think, unfortunately, that real estate agents, that all we do is just take from the community, that, we sell houses, we get paid, we move on. When I realized it was important for people to get a sense that I was as invested in the success of the community as they were, I think that was a big turning point in my business. So we have a program we call Give Together. And so we make a donation out of our net proceeds at the close of escrow to the local organization or charity of our client's choice. So you can start there. It could be, $50, or it could be $100. It can be a percentage. And it's such a meaningful thing for people when you say, I'm not going to give you a gift or something to take along to the next place. I'm going to make a donation to something that's important to you and me. Obviously, they often will pick the organization maybe that we met through. So, people who contact me through the school where our kids go, they always like to direct the money back there. Or people who contact me through the local mental health guild, they want the money to direct there. So, the thing that brought us together will often be the recipient of that benefit. But we end up giving money to the local food pantry, to the YMCA. And that's a way that you can start without any upfront costs. It's just something that you do as part of your listing presentation. And you say, on top of all of this, at the close of escrow, I make a donation to the local charity or organization of your choice. And it's a way for us to both give back to the community that, supports you and supports me and supports your home selling price. So that's
Absolutely love that.
You can do. I also have, I'm approached all the time, I'm sure most realtors are, to support the local school auction or the local, school festival. And so I do a lot of those like small donations that give you maybe like a quarter page ad in their brochure, or allow you some kind of sponsorship opportunity that they can give you some benefit for at the local school options. And then we have like a 5K run in our neighborhood that supports the local schools. So we have a booth every year at that 5K. And, ours is now supersized after all these years, but you can start very simply by having a booth where you pass out your information and, people are just there. They want to talk to you. So I would look for those opportunities to have a presence at the local farmers market or the local annual turkey trot or whatever the thing is in your neighborhood that brings people together.
When you said farmer's market, it just made me think of the farmer's market that's here every Saturday in a specific part of town that I'm in. If I was a real estate agent, I could just go pass out water bottles at the farmer's market every Saturday, right? Especially in Sacramento when it gets up to 110 degrees during the summer, 100 degrees.
Well, farmers markets are really, really important. People want to buy in neighborhoods that have farmers markets. And so, in fact, we learned that our farmers market was struggling a little bit. And so we pledged a monthly donation to them to help them cover their costs, because we don't want them to go anywhere. And in return, how they put up those tents, they have those tents all the farmers. Well, we have a couple of those tents that have our branding on them. So every single week at those, at the farmers market, there are 2 or 3 of our tents that are up. Just, they're just making shade, but it's visible branding in the marketplace.
I love that mutual value. You're doing something good for the community, and the community is able to do something good back for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously the people that you're getting exposure to there are very much the local people that you want to be top of mind with.
Right. And it's not, so you're top of mind with the people who go to the market. And then you also have raving fans, like the people who run the farmers market are so appreciative that you want to see them succeed,
Right.
And if you can't afford to, let's say, make that monthly pledge, then you could volunteer your time every month at the farmers market or every week. There are things that you can do rather than just say, hey, I just want to pass out my flyer.
Right.
For only a benefit for me. I'm finding ways to make it a mutual benefit for the community.
Absolutely love that. Let me ask you a question, Stephanie. When agents ask you for advice, mentorship, right, guidance, whatever input, what's a question that you wish they asked you more often about how to attract business as a real estate agent that you don't hear them ask often enough?
That's a good question. Um, you know, I will say maybe it's not a question that they don't ask me often enough. I think to my point earlier about agents who really ask lots of questions of their clients,
Mm,
I think there's a sense of what can I do to get people to work with me?
okay.
And I don't think that's the right question. I think the question is, what can you do to be of service to every single person that presents themselves in front of you? How can you help? And, before I go on a listing appointment, I try to actually get myself in that service mindset.
Okay.
Uh, and I have a little mantra before I go in of let me be of service to these people. It allows me to disconnect from the outcome. We all want the listing, don't get me wrong, right?
Hmm.
But, when I think about being of service to the person in that home, rather than let me get the listing, I go in and I'm much more curious about what's going on with them. Why are they moving? What's their motivation? What's the need? What are they trying to accomplish? And be much more interested in how I can help them get the best possible outcome rather than being concerned about how I get the listing.
I like that. If you woke up tomorrow morning, this is a little fun question. You wake up tomorrow morning and you have the power to install a piece of software into every real estate agent's mind, right? Their operating system, their mindset.
Okay.
Okay. And this software, what it does is it will help every real estate agent to become very consistent with implementing and being consistent with following 3 new habits, right? That would grow their real estate business. If you could choose those 3 habits, what would they be?
So it would be what, so let me make sure I understand, because I think I might be a little greedy. This is exciting. So it's a software that would make sure that they did everything we told them to do consistently every single day.
No, it's a software that, good clarification. It's a software where they might not be perfect at everything, but they would stay consistent in implementing 3 specific things. They would keep 3 good habits moving forward. And you know that if they at the very least stuck to these 3 habits consistently, it would increase the likelihood of their success and their effectiveness as a real estate agent in their career. So if you could pick those 3 core habits, whether they're related to event marketing or not, or community, being involved in a community or not, what would those 3 core habits be that you think would really upgrade all the success for all real estate agents?
Got it. Let's see. I think that the 3 core habits I would, and there are a lot of things, but obviously I can only pick 3. Like I said, I'm greedy, but because I think it takes a lot of discipline and a lot of practice and a lot of regular habits to be successful. But if I were picking 3, I would start with, because this is probably the one that's been the hardest for me, I'd start with the practice, the daily practice of, effort to what is great and what needs to happen to make it some affirmation, awareness, and gratitude. The second thing I would tell an agent to do every single day is to write 2 handwritten personal notes to anybody every single day. That ends up being something like 700 notes a year. Imagine what would happen in your business if you wrote 700 handwritten personal notes every single year, just to people to say, I was thinking of you. And then the third thing is, and I'm sure this isn't really related exactly to open house and marketing, but obviously open house is a big prospecting event. And if I could install software into any agent that got them to perfect their discipline around prospecting, I think that would be the most effective thing that they could do. And I think most critically is I'm a big believer in door knocking. And we all door knock around open house every single week. Whether it's a new open house or an old open house, we're constantly inviting neighbors to come join us and visit us and talk to us at open house. And if I could get every agent on my team to door knock for 2 hours, 5 days a week, it would be lights out.
Really? Absolutely love that. Very cool. Those are 3 great habits. The daily practice, habit number 1, the daily habit, the daily practice of reviewing what happened yesterday, what's your plan for today, gratitude and acknowledgement, and what are you going to need to do to make today great. Habit number 2 is write 2 handwritten notes every single day to somebody. And you can literally, the handwritten notes can literally be just, I thought of you and wanted to say hi, right? It can be simple as that. It doesn't have to be complicated. And then 3 is perfect your prospecting, your discipline around prospecting. Absolutely love that. Final question for you today that I want to ask is, what do you, I've heard some people say that sometimes a lot of agents make becoming a successful real estate agent more complicated than it needs to be, because a lot of us maybe believe that success has to be complicated, right, in order for it to be success. What do you think is a core thing that stands in the way of a lot of real estate agents who you have personally maybe mentored or tried to help or advise or have had on your team and maybe unfortunately didn't work out? What do you think is like a core thing that gets in the way, the real estate agents allowed to get in their own way, where if they could just get that out of the way, they could have so much more fun and have such a better impact and such a better business?
Well, I would say that one of the big mistakes I see is people who don't treat our business like a business. And they come into the business expecting that they can make, 6 figures out of the gate. And I don't really know very many careers where from day one, you're making 6 figures, and very many careers where you don't have to show up every day or do the hard work, right?
Right.
And we convince ourselves in real estate that we have a flexible schedule and that we can work from home and that we can, kind of do it the way we want to do it. And I would probably, I don't mean to sound maniacal, but I'd probably disagree with that. I would say, you have to show up every single day. You have to treat this like a business. You can't, you can't be your own boss and then act like you don't have a boss, right? And if you don't have a boss, what would they say about what you're doing?
Would they fire you or would they keep you?
That's right. And I think that, when I talk to people and how do you do it? How do you do it? And I tell them what my schedule looks like and what my commitment has been to building this business over the last 17 years. Usually that's the thing that kind of stops people in their tracks. They want to do what you do, but they don't want to have to work, as intensely. And look, I have a great quality life. I take vacation. I have a family. I have 2 kids. And they see me, but I apply myself 110% every day. And I take time off, but when I'm not taking time off, I am in it. Got it.
That makes so much sense. They want the income that you have, but they don't want to pay the price that you did to get there, right?
Yeah. And listen, I don't want to like disparage anybody who doesn't want. If you don't want to work that hard, it's great, but then don't complain about the results, right?
Right.
If you want to, my goal in real estate was not to sell the biggest houses. My goal was to sell houses all the time. So I really feel like having a consistent business where we can, I can wake up any day of the week and find a way to sell a house. For me, that's freedom. It might sound overwhelming to people, but I don't want to wonder where the next house is coming from.
Absolutely love it. Stephanie, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
It's been absolutely wonderful. I know we could talk so much more. We never even got a chance to talk about culture because we, event marketing, community, and being active in the community itself filled up all our time together.
I know. I'm sure we have more things to say. So maybe next year.
Maybe next time. You never know. For those of you who are listening, this has been Stephanie Younger. You can click on the link below to go check out her website if you like, stephanieyounger.com. For those who are listening, it is Stephanie Younger, YOUNGER, stephanieyounger.com. You can go check out her website if you want to learn more about her, or if you want to reach out to her and give her a personal thank you, which I'm sure she would appreciate and love to hear from you.
Yeah, always happy to share some tips and ideas.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for that. And on behalf of myself, And everybody who's in the audience here at the summit, Stephanie, I just want to say a big thank you. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for being willing to support us and me here on the summit in this project that we have, and just be able to being willing to give back and share so openly. I really do appreciate it, and I know that everybody who's listening does as well, and they've been able to take something away from this today that is going to inspire them and also give them some actionable information on next steps that they can take. So Stephanie, thank you so much for being so generous and sharing so openly. Thank you.
Thank you.